Now, from the Pope John Paul II Cultural Center in Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome to The World Over Live. Tonight, we discuss the Academy Award-nominated films. I know some of you are saying, I didn't see those movies. Well, they tell us something, good or bad, about where we are as a culture and who we are as a people. Father Willy Raymond, National Director of Family Theater Productions, is here. He'll talk about all the films and his Hollywood Outreach program, which you'll want to hear about. And right after headlines, the battle over federal funding of Planned Parenthood has been raging here in D.C. Tonight, a former director of Planned Parenthood, Abby Johnson, joins us on the set to discuss the true motives behind this national abortion provider and her own personal journey from Planned Parenthood director to pro-life activist. Her book, Unplanned, was recently released by Ignatius Press. If you have a question for Abby Johnson, or if you'd like to talk to Father Raymond about a career in film or television, the number, 1-800-221-9460 in the U.S. and internationally, 205-271-2980. Or drop us an email, worldover@EWTN.com. Let's get things started. Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. Diplomats are seeking a human rights investigation of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi in the wake of his recent crackdown on protesters in his country. EU nations want Libya suspended from the UN's Human Rights Council in advance of a hearing on Friday. According to the Associated Press, French President Nicolas Sarkozy has spoken with President Barack Obama and requested an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. This to demand immediate access to Libya for humanitarian aid workers and to establish a coalition to force Gaddafi to curb the violence. Hundreds are believed to have been killed in Libya by the Gaddafi regime in recent days. And two key pro-life measures advanced in the United States House of Representatives this week. The House Energy and Commerce Committee approved a bill ensuring that national health care will not provide abortion funding. The bill also strengthens conscience protections for health care workers. And the full House passed an amendment that removed federal funding of Planned Parenthood. For years, Planned Parenthood has received $363 million annually from federal, state, and local governments to run their clinics. Republican Congressman Mike Pence of Indiana, who sponsored the amendment, described the vote as a victory for taxpayers and a victory for life. And at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, President Barack Obama is reversing rules passed by previous presidents. This week, the Department of Health and Human Services issued new regulations withdrawing conscience protections for health care workers who have moral or religious objections to certain procedures. No longer protected are objections to in vitro fertilization, contraceptives, including chemical contraceptives that can induce abortion, and facilitating sexual practices that could be considered morally objectionable. The HHS rules did leave in place Bush-era protections for objections to abortion and sterilization. And announced this week, the Obama administration will no longer stand behind the Defense of Marriage Act. The act, which defines marriage as a relationship between one man and one woman, was passed by Congress in 1996 and signed into law by President Bill Clinton. According to Attorney General Eric Holder, President Obama changed his views on the law and now considers parts of it unconstitutional. The Justice Department traditionally defends all federal laws against court challenges, but Holder noted that no reasonable defense is possible in the case of the Defense of Marriage Act. And Maryland is on the verge of becoming the 6th U.S. state to legalize same-sex marriage. The state Senate approved a gay marriage bill on a vote of 25 to 21. It now moves on to the Maryland House. Attempts were made to include language allowing religiously affiliated adoption agencies to refuse services to same-sex couples and to exempt public school teachers from teaching materials that promote gay unions. All those amendments failed. Governor Martin O'Malley said he would sign the same-sex bill, although voters can petition for a referendum to overturn the law. And finally, Bernard Nathanson, abortionist turned pro-life activist, died this week. He was 84. In the 1960s, Nathanson was co-founder of what is today known as NARAL Pro-Choice America, and used his expertise to craft arguments in favor of abortion on demand. During his obstetric career, he claimed to have supervised more than 70,000 abortions, performing 5,000 of them personally. Nathanson experienced a profound change of heart soon after sonogram technology showed the first images inside the womb. He eventually embraced the pro-life cause. In 1985, he produced The Silent Scream, a highly influential film that showed graphic ultrasound images of the unborn child in the womb being aborted. In later years, he expressed remorse, confessing, "I am one of those who helped usher in this barbaric age." A self-described atheistic Jew, Nathanson was received into the Catholic Church in 1996 by Cardinal John O'Connor of New York. Archbishop Dolan of New York will preside at Nathanson's funeral at St. Patrick's Cathedral on Monday, the 28th. May Bernard Nathanson rest in peace. And last week, I mentioned a free offer to you all. Many of you have heard about the Truth and Life dramatic audio Bible I produced. It's the only Vatican-endorsed, fully dramatized New Testament available anywhere. From now through Easter, I wanted you to sample it and use it in your daily devotions. So, I've posted the entire Gospel of Mark at RaymondArroyo.com. You can listen to it or download it. The free copy is there. It's the bug in the middle of the homepage, RaymondArroyo.com. If you'd like to purchase the entire audio Bible, click on the banner at the top of the homepage. So that's my little gift to you as Lent approaches. And if you're planning a trip to D.C., why not experience the World Over in person? Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Drop us an email, worldoverdc@yahoo.com, and we'll reserve a seat for you. Up next, former Planned Parenthood director Abby Johnson is here to tell us how she became unplanned. The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
My first guest is a former director of a Planned Parenthood clinic in College Station, Texas. She's been all over the media recently talking about her experience with the abortion provider and offering an insider's perspective on Planned Parenthood's methods and motivation. She's the author of Unplanned by Ignatius Press, the story of her personal and faith journey. We had her scheduled to appear last month, but weather conspired against us, so I'm glad she's with us tonight. Please welcome Abby Johnson.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, you were a Planned Parenthood director at this clinic in Texas for 8 years. Tell me what precipitated your change of heart. It was a moment when you were asked to actually assist at an abortion, which hadn't happened before?
Well, I had actually been in the abortion room before, but this was the first time that we had actually done a live abortion procedure on an ultrasound screen. And it's called an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure. It had never been done at our clinic, to my knowledge. And so it was, the first time it was going to happen, I was going to be participating kind of as a learning experience. And I didn't know what was going to take place. I didn't know what I was going to see. But, I walked in the door thinking, well, there's going to be something to be learned here. And if I'm going to move up in the corporation like I hope to, this will be a good tool for me to have.
And what happened? You were asked to hold the ultrasound wand, right?
Yes.
And what did you see?
I saw a 13-week-old child in the womb. And when the abortion started to take place, I saw that child begin to fight for its life during the abortion procedure. And I saw it try to move to the other side of its mother's uterus, but there was nowhere for it to go. And I eventually saw that child lose the battle to abortion.
How long after that did you leave the Planned Parenthood clinic?
It was just about a week.
Really? Now, I want to show people, this is a clip of Congressman Chris Smith, no stranger to this program. He was reading a bit of your book during this debate. He read it into the congressional record. Take a look.
With my eyes glued to the image of this perfectly formed baby, I watched as a new image emerged on the video screen. The cannula, a straw-shaped instrument attached to the end of the suction tube, had been inserted into the uterus and was nearing the baby's side. It looked like an invader on the screen. Out of place, wrong. It just looked wrong.
Now, Abby, a lot of people throughout this debate, they say Planned Parenthood themselves say they want to make abortion safe, legal, and rare. You, as a director of the clinic, say what?
Well, right now, it's just legal. Abortion is not rare, and Planned Parenthood has no intention of making abortion rare. We see that Planned Parenthood just recently put out a mandate that stated that every single Planned Parenthood affiliate must be an abortion-providing affiliate by 2013.
And this is something new, but not totally unexpected. When you were at the clinic, tell me how they create their budget. I found this fascinating in your book, the way the budget is actually created in these local clinics.
Well, you have two budgets. One is for family planning, and then one is for abortion. And they give you a certain number of clients that you have to see every month. And there's a dollar amount attached to those clients. And you just multiply your client by the amount of money you need to make off of that client, and that's your budget.
And so abortion is a big part of their budget.
Absolutely.
And you all had to get a certain quota in every month? Is
That's
that
right.
the idea?
You have to perform a certain number of abortions every month.
But they aren't done throughout the week. The surgical abortions are only done on the weekends. But you all were giving out a lot of RU-486 during the week, yes?
Yes, and that is the main way that Planned Parenthood wants to increase their abortion numbers, is through a telemedicine-ish way of dispensing RU-486.
And tell me, we're talking about, incidentally, their recent numbers, 332,278 abortions. Now, those are 2009 numbers, so we don't know what the most recent numbers are.
Right.
But those are pretty staggering numbers, more than 5 million over the history of federal funding of Planned Parenthood.
Right.
Now, tell me this. How do you drive the numbers up? How do you meet that quota each month?
Well, you know, quite frankly, you have to start bringing down barriers. So, one, you want to reduce the financial barrier. They're able to do that. Next, you want to reduce the barrier to accessibility. So you want to start offering abortions, you know, every day of the week or as many times as you can during the week. You know, you want to be able, when a woman finds out she's pregnant, get her in as soon as you can. You know, get her in the next day so that she doesn't have time to think about her decision. She can just immediately make an appointment and have an abortion. What
would you say to women who are contemplating an abortion? I know there are some in the audience from time to time. You yourself, in the book, write about your own and it's a torturous experience of going through the abortion procedure. What would you say to girls who are contemplating it right now and find themselves in a difficult position?
You know, I go out and sidewalk counsel outside of the clinic where I used to work and other clinics as I travel. And, you know, one of the things that I tell women is that you'll never regret being a mother. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I never regret having my daughter, Grace. But I do regret the 2 abortions that I had. And, you know, you don't ever regret motherhood, but you do regret lost motherhood.
You also have a great line in the book that I pulled out. Never trust a decision you don't want your mom to know about. Yeah. Which is a really good rule of thumb. Because this is I mean, this is not a decision I think these young women take lightly, but I do think they feel there's no other option to them. And the fact is there are other options. What are those other options? What's the story we're not hearing? And we're going to return to Planned Parenthood in a moment, but talk to me about these crisis pregnancy centers, what they're doing now.
Crisis pregnancy centers are really offering a wonderful array of services that Planned Parenthood is not offering, and they're doing it all at no cost to the woman. You know, they are not, by any stretch of the imagination, free. There is a cost for all of the services, but there are dedicated people who are pro-life people that are paying the cost of these services, and they are providing material goods for women. They are providing emotional support for these women. They're providing pregnancy tests. Many of them are providing free sonograms. They're providing, you know, so many services for these women that Planned Parenthood are not providing for them.
In this whole debate this past week over this Planned Parenthood federal funding, $350 million come from the federal and local governments. They make a profit of $1.2 billion. Where is the money coming from?
It's primarily coming from their abortion services.
Really?
Yes.
How much is an abortion in one of these clinics?
It can range anywhere from, you know, $400 to, you know, a couple $1,000s, depending on how far along she is in her pregnancy.
Now, Abby, you've seen, no doubt, all of the ink being spilled during this debate. And those who are defending Planned Parenthood say, wait a minute, this is a war on women and children. There are services being provided at that family planning clinic that Planned Parenthood is running. And here's the statistics they throw out. 17% of the services there, cancer screening. 34% of the services provided there, contraception. Only 3% of the services, Abby Johnson, is abortion-related. How can you close down that health clinic in this distressed area of a city?
Do you want me to answer?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a couple things I want to say there. One is that Planned Parenthood skews their numbers. So the 97% number, it's not accurate.
97% referring to what?
Preventative. Their preventative care. That's not a real number. Planned Parenthood does a really good job of bundling and unbundling services. So if a woman comes in for an annual exam, for instance, and she gets a pap smear, she gets several STD screenings, she gets 13 months of birth control, that could add up to 20 services, and they're going to charge that as 20 visits. They're going to unbundle that as 20 visits. Now, if she comes in for an abortion, they're going to bundle those services so that it's one visit. So it's actually a very, very skewed number. So 20 visits for one patient as opposed to one visit for abortion. So the numbers are probably more like 20% of the services they provide are abortion services if you bundled them both on family planning and abortion.
What do you say to those who say you are depriving women of pap smears and mammograms that they couldn't get anywhere else, Abby?
Okay, first of all,
that's what that federal fund, taking away that federal funding, that's what it will lead to.
First of all, Planned Parenthood provides absolutely no mammograms. No Planned Parenthood across the country provides mammogram services. So Cecile Richards and all the other, advocates of Planned Parenthood keep saying that. No Planned Parenthood provides mammograms, number one. Number two, we are not saying that we don't want women to have these services. I'm not even saying I want the $363 million back. I don't want it back. Take the money and put it into other healthcare providers.
And there are community clinics that are there in place that we don't hear anything about.
Absolutely. There are about 800 Planned Parenthood centers. There are almost 7,000 federally qualified health centers that do not perform abortions, but they provide comprehensive health care services, not a limited amount of services like Planned Parenthood, but a comprehensive health care services. They see women, they see men, and they do pediatric care. They have vision centers, they have pharmaceutical centers, they have dental centers. These are comprehensive care centers, and they can also do mammograms. So they're actually providing the services that Planned Parenthood cannot.
An acquaintance of mine, when she heard you were coming on the show, sent me an email in the past week and said, why are you having this woman on? She's a liar. You shouldn't have her on. And she said, what about the argument that contraceptives and distributing contraceptives actually reduce the number of abortions? Now, this particular person is I think more liberal on the political spectrum. I have heard the same argument put forward by conservative friends of mine. What is the answer here? Do contraceptives actually reduce the number of abortions, given what you've seen on the ground in Planned Parenthood clinics?
Well, we see that it actually doesn't. We see the studies show that contraceptives don't do what they promise to do. So Guttmacher Institute, in fact, which is Planned Parenthood's own research arm, show that 54% of women who are having abortions were using contraception at the time they got pregnant. So another way to look at that is that, you're looking out into the waiting room of an abortion center. More than half of those girls are on some kind of contraception and they're pregnant. So, that's a good way to kind of look at it. We see that in places where there's higher contraceptive rates, there's higher abortion rates. That's no coincidence there. There's a high correlation.
And what about, you talk in the book about building a relationship. They sort of build a relationship to these young women using the free contraceptives, come in and get an exam for an STD. What is the method behind that approach?
Well, it's the same thing with their sex education programs. Let's get into the schools. Let's get these young
you go to
boys
the website,
and girls.
There are cartoons. It's kind of fun and frolic there.
Right, absolutely. Let's get them in early. Let's develop a relationship with them. We're sure their method's going to fail eventually. 54%, hello. We're sure it's going to fail eventually. We're going to get them in, and then we're going to have them as a cash patient, and they're going to be an abortion patient.
Can they survive? Can Planned Parenthood nationally survive without that federal injection of $370 million?
No.
No. So what do you think will happen?
I think that centers will start closing. Some centers will be able to maintain, especially the large surgical centers. But a lot of the smaller centers will close. If
you have a question for Abby Johnson, you can give us a call. The number is 1-800-221-9460 in the U.S., internationally 205-271-2980. I know a lot of you are emailing in, so I will get to your questions. World over at EWTN.com. Abby, I want to switch gears for a moment. You are now affiliated with Live Action, correct? Yes. Which is Lila Rose's group. Lila Rose did the undercover exposés we've been seeing so much of in the media, where she sent cameras in and an actor posing as a pimp, another as a prostitute, and they basically revealed, it's alleged, that Planned Parenthood was willing to aid and abet sex trafficking of underage girls via their clinics. How prevalent is this? How widespread is this? Or is it at all?
It's widespread. It's prevalent. We had women that would come into our clinic. They were prostitutes. They were in the sex industry. We let them go back out with their pimps. We did nothing to stop them. We
didn't report it?
No, we did not report it. We did nothing to help them. And I think what has happened in Planned Parenthood is that, I remember in the Virginia tape, there was this one young girl, a worker, and she said, we accept everyone, we don't judge, we accept everyone here, all different walks of life. And that really stuck out to me because I could almost hear myself saying that when I worked at Planned Parenthood. What Planned Parenthood has done is that they have allow themselves to be a place where they want to be so tolerant of people and so tolerant of these different walks of life that they have forgotten to protect the same women that they say that they are there to help.
Yeah. So you would say that what we saw on those tapes from Live Action, that's standard operating procedure, you think, for Planned Parenthood?
Yes, and I don't even think that they realize that they're hurting the women that are coming in.
Well, in stunning testimony this week, Phil Klein, who was the former Attorney General in Kansas, is being brought up on ethics charges because of the way he handled records that he got from Planned Parenthood. As it turns out, he took the stand this week and said he personally observed or discovered 166 instances where either a Planned Parenthood clinic or George Tiller, the late-term abortionist, allowed 14-year-old girls or younger to come into these clinics, receive abortions. Only 2 of the 166 were reported as child rape cases. Is this more of the same? That's only Kansas. Did you see this sort of thing in Texas?
Yes. Yes. Not personally at my clinic. We did a pretty good job of reporting, particularly minors who are coming in for an abortion. But yes, it does happen. It happened at our affiliate. I remember when the state was coming in, there'd be times where the state was coming in for an audit, and all of a sudden we're having to pull all of our minor charts, and certain clinics have a problem with their minor charts, and we're going to have to scrub them. We're going to have to fix them before the state comes, and that is a very common occurrence.
I want to go to the phones. Michael, you're on the World Over Live. What's your question, Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Raymond, for taking my call. My question is, how do these Planned Parenthood clinics get their licenses? What is the procedure? Are they ever inspected, these clinics? Have any clinics been closed?
No. Go ahead.
That's actually a great question. I called every state in the United States, and I asked what their procedure was for inspection. And it was surprising to me to find out that there are hardly any states that actually have a separate abortion inspection process. In Texas, we actually have a separate group of people that go out and do abortion inspections, but that is very, very rare.
And we should tell people, they sort of job these people in. These physicians aren't at the clinic. They come in on weekends, one day, right, where they sort of perform a battery of
And even
abortions.
if, in Houston, where they do abortion 6 days a week, it's 6 different doctors. So it's not one doctor that comes in and is there 6 days a week.
Tell me, what are abortion people who are working in the abortion industry, what has been their reaction to this book, which is a very personal tale on one front, and in the sort of back shadow of the book is an expose of Planned Parenthood, what really goes on in its motivations?
Well, I've had, several different reactions. I've had some people that are in the industry that have contacted me. And, they've said, I read your book. I have mixed emotions. I work in the industry. I'd like to talk to you more. And those, I want to talk to them. I've had people that, have left the industry and they want to talk to me. I've had people that are still in the industry that, they don't have very favorable things to say about me. But I'm just glad that people are reading it.
I was also struck that the Coalition for Life people, which is a group that does sidewalk counseling, they pray outside the clinic. You mentioned in the book that you looked out your window and they were out there praying for you. And do you go out and talk to them? Was that how important was that in your journey?
It was important because I just always remembered them saying, we will help you. If you ever want to leave, we're here for you. And just kind of thinking, I hope they mean it because here I come. And I didn't actually go to them, but their building is conveniently located next door to the Planned Parenthood. So I actually got in my car. I could have walked, but that would have looked suspicious. So I got in my car and drove around the block and went over there.
Now, if you watch MSNBC, and not too many people do, Rachel Maddow the other night made it seem as if the pro-life activists are these terrorists, domestic terrorists, in fact, is how she referred to them. Is that what you saw when you were on the other side of the fence here?
There were times I felt like that. When Dr. Tiller was killed, I felt that way. Right. When clinics would get bombed, I felt that way. There were times where I felt like, we are in a battle and these people are terrorists out to kill us.
But these are isolated acts by and large. I mean, they are no doubt should be condemned and outrageous acts and unjustifiable acts.
Yes.
But they're
isolated, but that is not the way that the Planned Parenthood world and the abortion world. That is not what they want the clinic workers to feel. They want you to feel like this is everybody, every pro-lifer. This is what is taking place. They're all making bombs in their basements. They're all, this could happen to our clinic at any point in time. And so, you have to be on your guard. They're following you everywhere. This is taking place.
Yeah, I have an email here from a woman who says, isn't it curious that pro-lifers are seen as terrorists while those who are killing innocent children are seen as generous souls?
Right. Yeah, and I remember the week that I was, thinking, okay, I think I need to get out of here. Before I'd always seen us as the savior. So, I'd always seen these people out on the fence. They were the ones that were harassing. They were the ones that were bothering our clients, and we were saving them. Getting them into our clinic and providing these great services. And I remember that week I started to see a change, and I started to feel like we were the bad guys. And they were kind of saving them. And I was finding myself relieved if the people were actually going to the fence and taking the information and leaving. And I thought, this is not how I should feel if I'm the director of a clinic.
Probably not a good thing.
No.
Tell me, we're getting emails, a lot of them, suggesting that the Susan J. Komen Foundation, the G. Komen Foundation, which is there for the defense.
Pink ribbon.
Pink ribbons fighting breast cancer. It says here they give money to Planned Parenthood for the sole purpose of mammograms. Is this true? This is Katie from Juniper, Florida. You said a moment ago they don't do any mammograms.
They don't do any mammograms.
So why is the Komen Foundation giving them money?
Susan G. Komen is a very heavy donor to Planned Parenthood. Susan G. Komen put out a statement saying that they give to Planned Parenthood so that women in rural areas will have mammograms. But that is not true because Planned Parenthood does not provide any mammogram services. Planned Parenthood is a level 1 breast clinic, and they can only provide manual breast exams. And that can be done at any hospital, clinic, anywhere by any nurse.
Wow. So do they realize, and talk a little about this, I've had many a physician try to educate me on the link between contraceptives and breast cancer. Did you see anything in your experience to see any linkage there?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a professional. But, you know, as I've come out of this, I mean, I definitely have side effects in my own life from all the different types of contraception that I've used in my past. And I see just, you know, these side effects from all of these women that have taken contraception. And I look at the fine print now on the bottom of contraceptive labels that I never looked at before, and I think there's got to be a link. You know, we look at cancer, you know, reproductive cancers are on the rise, and, you know, contraception's on the rise, and that correlation cannot be a coincidence.
Yeah. Well, and you see, I mean, we know elevated estrogen levels lead to the metastasization of this cancer.
It just makes sense.
So if you're giving them estrogen to cut off the reproduction, it would seem there's some byproduct there. This is another question, and this is something you touch on in the book. Why is it that Planned Parenthood would deliberately deny the medical fact that the unborn child is a living person? And do they, Bradley?
You know, they have had to change their talking points a little bit because women are coming in and they're saying, you know, I know this is a baby. I know this is my baby. And so Planned Parenthood, about 2 years ago, they restructured and they kind of went through this rebranding. And so they started to say, you know, that abortion is a wise parenting decision.
Right.
And so, you know, you're choosing abortion because you care about yourself, you care about your family, and you care about your future family. And so they had to start recognizing that these women do see this as a baby. They do see it as a living human being. And they had to restructure that because so many women were coming in and they are recognizing it as their child.
Well, you mentioned in the book, and if memory serves, that you would tell people the tissue, as the fetal tissue is removed, it doesn't experience any pain.
Right.
So there is sort of that disconnect that one has to have. If
and
you're
there has to be a disconnect. You know, there has to be a disconnect.
You need the emotional distance
Absolutely.
to keep going. And the book does a great job of illustrating, as you became more sensitive to the reality of this, your inability to really stay there. Stay even in the clinic any longer.
Right.
Here's another email I want to share with you. Didn't you feel that there was a spiritual battle going on, especially when you saw what an abortion was doing to a baby? That's Brenda from Texas.
I didn't feel it immediately, no. I see it now. I look back at my life and I see such a difference. I see how my mind was caught up truly in evil. The things that came out of my mouth, the things that I thought of, the way I was living. I remember the first pro-life book I ever read was Dr. Nathanson's Hand of God. And I remember in the book he was talking about how the Nazi soldiers would they would go to the concentration camps and they would torture these Jews, and then they would go home to their families. And, you know, they would eat dinner and they would, you know, snuggle at bed, you know, bedtime with their sons and their daughters, and they would just have this disconnect. And he was comparing it to those of us that had worked in the abortion industry. And I remember that being a very profound statement for me. And looking back, I can see how that was so true. I can see the parallels there. And I see how my mind and my spirit and my body was so caught up in evil, but I didn't see it then.
This is interesting. This Nancy in Ontario raises this point. Can you explain the math to her? She says, why can't Planned Parenthood survive without the government subsidy if the profit is $1 billion and they're only getting $370 million?
I know that doesn't really make sense, but if they lose the $363 million, that's losing $363 million of Medicaid patients, of Title patients. That's losing a lot of money. That's losing a lot of foot traffic in the door. And those are people that they are relying on to come back in for abortion services. And so that's a lot of their patients. It's a lot of their clientele. Remember I said that 54% of women who are contracepting, that method will fail them, and they will come back in for an abortion. They are relying on those methods to fail them so they can come back in.
And some of the congressmen this week have been making the point that these are fungible dollars because they're used to pay for the facility or the electricity of the facility or people in the facility. And the fact is they're doing medical abortions over here in this wing, and it's not explicitly going to that, but it's keeping the whole enterprise afloat.
Absolutely. If one, in fact, in my own facility, in my own affiliate where I worked, our family planning number would be in the red, but our surgical number was always in the black. So, one would compensate for the other. And that's the way it is. So people that say, oh, the money's not fungible, it absolutely is.
It says here, this is Dave from Fort Wayne, Indiana. How does this funding help Planned Parenthood stay in business but stay segregated from abortion services? But there's no segregation.
There's no segregation. On paper, there's a segregation. For the state, there's a segregation. For the federal government, there may be a segregation. On the door, there may be two different names. But in the end, at the end of the day, in their bank account, it's one big pile of money.
I can see why they tried to sue you and shut you up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your journey to the Catholic Church. Now, I hear you're entering the church in this Easter.
Yes.
Tell me, how did that come about? This is a long journey for you.
Yeah, it's been an exciting journey. We were actually Episcopalian,
right?
And we were kind of booted out of the church.
Booted out?
Yeah, we were.
You mean when you left the Planned Parenthood clinic?
Yeah.
So that gets you booted out?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the Episcopalian Church, very pro-choice, part of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. So they're very pro-choice, believe in abortion rights. So it was not. It was surprising because that was our faith community. We loved them. It was very sad for us. But on one hand, we joined that church because they were open to abortion, right? And that's where we felt comfortable. So, we were asked to leave, so we did. And then, we started looking around at churches. And, of course, a lot of our new friends were Catholic. And we were looking around, and finally went to Mass. And immediately we sat down and we thought, man, the liturgy is almost the exact same.
The lights came on again.
Yeah, and we just knew that was the right place for us to be.
This is an email from Michelle in North Carolina. She writes, I work in a crisis pregnancy center as a peer counselor. Where do you see yourself serving to help pro-life efforts now? And what are you doing? Tell them what you're doing now.
Okay, well, I work on projects for 40 Days for Life. 40 Days for Life, of course, is very dear to me. And I, not just because I love the organization, I love, Sean and David, but because I know it works. But also, I am now, like you said, the Chief Research Strategist for Live Action. I do a lot of public speaking. I do consulting for pregnancy resource centers. Pregnancy resource centers are just getting off the ground, or they're trying to do kind of a rebranding of themselves, wanting to be really competitive with Planned Parenthood in their market, and so I do that. I do a lot of legislative activities.
Well, you were in Texas today.
That's right.
Where, and we should say as we go out here, the Texas bill passed the Senate and the House now.
It passed. Yeah, it passed.
Right?
It's kind of.
No, not? What happened?
Well, we have a Senate bill sitting in the House, and we have a House bill sitting in the Senate. So it's kind of a staring contest right now.
Okay.
Who will blink first?
Okay, because but this requires an ultrasound and a 24-hour waiting period.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's gonna be a good bill. We're gonna get it passed, and we're gonna have finally some really strong sonogram legislation.
Yeah, Senator Dan Patrick, I know, started that in the Senate there, and he's been holding the torch on this for a long time. But and what is the correlation when a woman sees an ultrasound as opposed to when she doesn't, and she's considering an abortion?
You know, in pregnancy resource centers. When a woman that comes in that's abortion vulnerable, abortion minded, I mean, it can be as high. Some centers have a 95% turnaround rate, but the average is somewhere around 80%.
Wow, amazing. Abby Johnson, thank you for being here. Unplanned by Abby Johnson, published by Ignatius Press, is available through EWTN's religious catalog. Up next, Father Willy Raymond from Family Theater Productions in Hollywood joins us to talk about using the mass media to transform the culture. The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there. Thanks
again. Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
The annual Academy Awards are being held this weekend in Hollywood. It gives us a chance to discuss the cultural impact and message contained in some of the Oscar-nominated movies. My next guest works in Hollywood. He's a priest of the Congregation for the Holy Cross and National Director of Family Theater Productions. Please welcome my old pal to the program, Father Willy Raymond.
Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about these films. When you look at the span of them, they're very different films, but there seems to be this family thread that runs through them. Imperfect families at times, but a family thread. What do you see there? What are we missing?
The Oscar-nominated films this year?
The Oscar-nominated films.
That's, wow. I have to confess that I am in Hollywood, but not of Hollywood, so I've only seen 7 out of the 10.
Oh, well, I think I've seen 4 out of the 10, so you've got me beat. What was your favorite? Of all of the films you've seen and that you see nominated, let me run down so everybody's on the same page.
Sure.
The King's Speech, The Fighter, Black Swan, the kids are all right, but the parents aren't. Toy Story 3, True Grit, and Winter's Bone. What is your favorite of them?
Personal favorite is Winter's Bone.
Really?
And,
why?
Yes,
I mean, this is kind of a meth lab in the rural South, right?
It is. It's a meth lab in the rural South and in the Ozarks. And I saw it up at the Sundance Film Festival a year ago, and I think it's this film that captures the ethos of the Ozarks and the family situation, a very complicated and dysfunctional family, and the heroism of a young woman who is surviving through all of this. It's a little bit unreal, but it's a very well done film. And
I'm surprised you didn't say King's Speech, which is my favorite film of the year.
Sure.
Not that everybody has to have my favorite film, but why not, Father? Did you saw The King's Speech?
I did see The King's Speech.
And you didn't think that was the best film of the year? Beautiful marriage, the tale of friendship, overcoming adversity. You could take the wife to it without blushing.
Sure.
I mean, you know.
I think it's going to win. And it deserves it. I think well, you know, without getting into a long discussion about the various traits of the best film, I do think that the King's Speech is a complete film. It's a work of art that
beautifully acted, beautifully shot. The story is fantastic. I mean, I've seen it twice, and I can't remember a film in the last 5 years I've seen twice.
Sure,
so it was pretty good. True Grit. Do you like remakes?
Not particularly.
Me neither.
And I thought it was entertaining, but the end really left me disappointed and
it's very bleak at the end.
Yes, and the stilted English I found somewhat appealing actually because. When he's going out to face single-handedly 4 armed men, and the young woman says, that would be ill-advised.
Yeah, it's kind of a stiff,
yes.
And I know that mirrors the book. Some people, I tweeted about this once and got blowback from everybody. It was just like the book. All right, well, it doesn't play well in the mouths of the actors. Let's talk about family theater productions, which you run in Hollywood. And you said a moment ago, I'm in Hollywood, but not of Hollywood. How do you maintain that, maintain your priesthood, and keep a vibrant, relevant production company in the middle of Hollywood?
Sure. Family Theater is 64 years old. It's been on Sunset Boulevard since the very beginning when Father Peyton founded it. And he founded it because he had a passion for family prayer and the rosary. And he thought that the media, and he was a visionary, and he thought that the media, radio, television, film, the internet, and that all of those were a way for him to take his message and with a megaphone reach the whole world.
And that the church should be in the middle of that cultural conversation.
The church, absolutely. And I think more so today than in the 1940s when he founded Family Theater, because if you look all around the world, I can remember being in the Altiplano, and a little Aymaran boy came up to me and he said, "Do you know Arnold Schwarzenegger?" Oh. And can you imagine that? That's one of the most inaccessible places on earth, and they knew Arnold Schwarzenegger. So film is affecting people in the far recesses.
Now, there are a lot of people watching who say, this culture is so toxic, we just check out. We don't let our kids watch TV. We don't let them watch movies. We have to protect them from it.
Sure.
You would say what?
I would say that is really wrong-headed. That it is toxic. There's a lot about it that is toxic, and yet it's redeemable. And it's if Peter and Paul had said that about the Roman Empire, they would have ended up in the deserts of Egypt alone, and not going to the center of Rome and transforming that whole culture.
And Father Patrick Peyton, who many watching may know, we play some of your programs, and Father Peyton's there praying his rosary, and people will remember the line, "The family that prays together stays together." I love when you go there on Hollywood Boulevard, right?
Right.
And there's the sign in front of Family Theater, "The family that prays together stays together." And right across the street is a strip club.
Yes, Sunset
this is
Boulevard.
Right where the church should be. Right where it should be.
It is.
Evangelizing. And I often think those people coming out of that club in the middle of the night, and they look up and they see those hands and the rosary around them. What do they think? But having that message there available to people no matter where they are is certainly near and dear to the heart of the founders of this network, who wanted that message to go out no matter where people were. And I think Father Peyton, she continued that legacy with Father Peyton.
Yes, and to answer your initial question about how can you remain a priest in the middle of Hollywood, that's my primary calling, to be a priest, and like all of us, to be a saint. And the greatest tragedy in human life is not to be a saint. I think some French, Leon Blois said that. And Father Peyton really believed that, and I'm as faithful as I can be to his vision, but in another millennium now.
One of the things I love, you all do the Angeles Film Festival every year. Tell us what that is. It's a student film festival.
Sure, it's a competition for university students, and from this year, 28 different countries participated, and we had 500 entries.
And what are you looking for in these films?
We're looking for films with themes like redemption, triumph of the human spirit, respecting the dignity of the human person, and family values. And we're in receiving the films, we are very careful with the adjudication. We make sure that every film is watched in its entirety and watched by 3 different people. We bring professionals from the industry to help us look at the films and evaluate them. And in the end, we choose what we think are the best finalists. And
now, one of your entrants this year, Luke Mathany's God of Love, is nominated for an Oscar.
Yes.
For Best Short Live Film.
That's right.
Tell us about the film and what made you all interested in it.
The film is a comedy, and it is the Patrick Peyton Excellence in Filmmaking Award. That's the highest award we give, $10,000. And you get your film screened at the Directors Guild on Sunset Boulevard. his film is a comedy about a torch singer in a bar who he breaks hearts while he tosses darts, and he is not able to attract the girl of his dreams, and so there's a prayer scene, and he also receives divine help from Olympus, and these darts that he's able to prick people with, and they're for 6 hours they're very likely to fall in love with the first person that they see. So
oh wow, keep those darts away from me. I don't need any more. Let's talk for a moment about this movie, Gods and Man. Did you see Men? Did you see this movie, this French film?
No, I'm really eager to see it. I know it won the Cannes Film Festival.
It won the Cannes Film Festival. It wasn't nominated, though the French put it forward for a foreign film at the Oscars. It is one of the most beautiful meditative films. Set in Algeria, it's a monastery that's under attack by these radicals, and at the end they're all martyred. But it is a beautiful film about being in the middle of where you're called to be, and holding up that cross despite what's coming at you.
Yeah, that's what I've read reviews of it, and I have a copy of it, and I'm planning to watch it. But I know that the temptation was to cut and run because they really were under threat, and they stayed and they died. And I think just to get back to Hollywood for a minute, and this is something that just happened a couple months ago. These young people came to me and they said, we want to honor Christ the King. And so we're thinking of a Eucharistic procession from Blessed Sacrament Church up to Family Theater and then to a couple of other parishes. And would you carry the Blessed Sacrament for us?
Wow.
And I was thinking, here we are going down Sunset Boulevard with a Eucharistic procession with 50 or so, mostly young people, and it's typical, I think, of what is really needed in Hollywood, that to be truly Catholic and to be present there in the middle of Hollywood is worth more than anything else we can do professionally.
It's very, very hard today, though. I mean, I have a brother who's an actor, and you are constantly, because young people can so quickly jettison to fame, and all you have to give up is your dignity.
Yeah.
If you're willing to do that, you really can go wherever you'd like in Hollywood.
Sure.
How do you counsel, because I know so many young people come to you looking for answers, wanting to maintain the best part of themselves. What do you tell them?
Exactly what you would expect, that if you lose your soul, you can gain the whole world, and it does nothing for you. You've gained nothing at all. And we try to build in. We have prayer and pasta. We have a special RCIA program for people in the industry.
This is the Hollywood Praise.
It's yes, Hollywood Praise, and we're. I think that when you get right down to it, a lot of these young people, the best advice they could get would be, look, you do not have the talent to be a great actor or a great writer, a great director, a great producer. You've come here, and the best advice they could get is think of another profession. And that, in all honesty, that's what that.
And you sometimes tell them that.
Yes, yeah. I have to do that in all honesty.
And what about the other ones in our last 30 seconds here? What about the kid that has enormous talent? What do you tell him? How do you maintain your values and remain credible in the middle of all that?
It's what I like to do is to go back to the great actors in the history of Hollywood. And if you think of Gregory Peck and Jimmy Stewart and Loretta Young, and if you can imagine them doing some of the scenes that they're expected to do in films today, and I also say, if I can, Jim Caviezel and people like him who inspire all kinds of young Catholics to come to Hollywood are very important, and it's important for them to be supported.
I agree. Father Willy Raymond, thanks so much for being
Pleasure.
here. If you'd like to learn more about the Family Theater Productions work and Hollywood Praise, visit the Family Theater website, familytheater.org. As many of you know, EWTN recently acquired the National Catholic Register, the nation's leading Catholic newspaper, and we'd like to invite you to subscribe. You can keep up to date on Vatican news, arts and entertainment, commentary and opinion after you watch our show, of course. You can find it all in the National Catholic Register. Go to EWTN.com, click on the National Catholic Register banner to find out how to subscribe. Until next week, you can find updates and the occasional commentary by following me on Twitter or on my Facebook fan page. Just go to RaymondArroyo.com. You can click through from there. You can also sign up for my e-blast and get your free, fully dramatized Gospel of Mark from the Truth and Life audio Bible at RaymondArroyo.com. Blair Underwood narrates that Gospel. He does a fantastic job. Then you can order the whole Gospel at the top banner there on the website. Until next week, we will be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, I'm Raymond Arroyo. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye now.